like to read Psalm 128. It's entitled, Blessed is everyone who fears the Lord. Blessed is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. You shall eat the fruit of the labour of your hands. You shall be blessed, and it shall be well with you. Your wife will be like a fruitful vine within your house. Your children will be like olive shoots round your table. Behold, thus shall the man be blessed who fears the Lord. The Lord bless you from Zion. May you see the prosperity of Jerusalem all the days of your life. May you see your children's children. Peace be upon Israel. I don't know if you've ever lost something in your home and you've expended a lot of energy and effort trying to find whatever it is that you've misplaced. And then another family member comes along and they join in the search. And they find what you've been looking for all along, but they find it in an entirely different place. So you've been looking for something, but you've been looking in the wrong place and you failed to find what you've been looking for. I think that's true of people in our world. There's a lot of heartache and hurt in our world. Where can you find happiness? There's a lot of brokenness and bitterness in our world. Where can you find blessing? Well, actually, the Bible teaches us that having all of our possessions in exactly the right place will not bring us happiness. But rather, we need to have God in the right place, at the very center of everything that we do. The psalmist says, Blessed is everyone who fears the Lord. What does it mean to fear God? It means that we recognize God for who he actually is, that he is perfect and just and holy. It means that we have a reverence and a respect for God. It means that we give God the rightful place in our lives. And if we do that, if we have this fear of God and this respect and reverence for God, the psalmist says that this will bring blessing and benefit into our lives. But it's not just having God within our hearts, but it's living that out on a daily basis. And in verse 1 it says, Blessed is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. In other words, if we have the right attitude towards God, then that will lead to right actions. We will walk in his ways. We will have a regard and a respect for what God has told us in his word. We will be willing to listen to what God is saying, and we will be willing to do what God is saying. Have you ever taken the wrong path in life? Have you ever done something that's foolish because you failed to follow the path that you should have followed, and you realize now that you've been foolish? Just this last week, someone was telling me that they had some fresh concrete laid outside their home. And his son walked into the fresh concrete. And of course, if you walk into fresh concrete, you get stuck and you make a terrible mess. And the reason that he walked into the fresh concrete was, one, he had forgotten that the concrete was there and it had just been laid. But he also failed to follow his father's footsteps because his father didn't walk in to the wet concrete. And sometimes as God's people, we fail to follow God. And because we fail to follow God, we walk in the wrong place and we get stuck there. And it's detrimental to our own lives and certainly to our spiritual lives. And so what Psalm 128 is telling us is there is blessing. There's blessing if we fear God. And there's blessing if we follow God, if we walk in his ways. It goes on to say that you shall eat the fruit of the labour of your hands, and you shall be blessed, and it shall be well with you. And so what this psalm is teaching us is that this blessing expands beyond our own lives. It reaches out into the workplace. It reaches out into our home. Your wife will be like a fruitful vine within your house, and your children will be like olive shoots around your table. So if this is where blessing begins, in fearing God and in having the right attitude and actions toward God, then we see that this blessing and benefit of following God reaches out from our own hearts into our homes. It has an impact on our wife. It has an impact on our children. And we saw in Psalm 127 verse 3 that children are a heritage from the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is a reward. And so we can see how God is bringing blessing and benefit into our hearts, but also into our home. And so when you have God inside your heart and your home, then that is real blessing. Children sitting around your table. And then the psalmist in verse 6 even talks about the possibility and prospect of seeing your children's children, your grandchildren. So what a great joy and blessing it is to know God. Blessed is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways.